Wars.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? We are here live for the first time in person.
Yes.
George Rogers here with the one and only Gary Brackett. How you doing, my friend?
Let's go, man. Doing good, man. You know, it's a holiday season.
Yeah.
You know, people finish out the year strong on the personal and the business front. So glad to be able to jump on, talk to the people here live.
Well, listen, we're excited about being here. We wanted to do something different. We want to give a shout out. We're 15 episodes in on Champion Blueprint, the podcast. We want to thank everybody that's been supporting the podcast. But we decided to do something different. We're both passionate in both the business life and also leadership, and it's something that we do and support. Whether it's leadership development, whether it's keynote speaking. We have coaching cohorts and things of that nature. And the podcast is just a way for us just to really get a lot of things that's on our shoulders and our chest.
Yeah.
It's a way to just share and give out some free content and help other business leaders and everything like that. A lot of people know Gary Brackett from the Indianapolis Colts football. Yeah. But man, you've done a lot more. Just real quick, because you've gone from the restaurant industry to the real estate industry, and you've kind of gone and really expanded your network and territory.
Yeah.
Give the people an update, what you're doing, why you do what you do now, why you're so passionate about things like this right now that we're going to be doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think one of the things that I've always been enamored growing up was just leadership and just strong teams. Even this weekend, I had an opportunity to go through the NFL. They have a Brain and Body, and I'm with the Cleveland Clinic, and just, they're known as one of the best hospital systems.
Yeah.
But just see how organized they were and how they communicated and the checks and balances they have in place. So I've always been extremely excited about organization that people that lead themselves with excellence.
Mm-hmm.
We always talk about the championship mindset, right?
Yep.
And that's something I developed at an early age. And one of the things that I see that's missing in people that are where they at and some people that, are still trying to get there is that mindset piece.
Yeah.
So I'm really passionate about sharing what I know, what I experience, to try to encourage, inspire, and activate other people so they can kind of live their best lives as well.
Love it. And so we here today, one of the things we want to talk about, this is something that's kind of near and dear. We get a lot of different people coming in, chiming in. We work with a lot of organizations, right, and kind of really capturing what they're going through and be able to support them. Why emotional discipline matters. We've been talking about this a little bit, and it's something that was on your heart. It's like, hey, this is something that we need to chat about, and specifically how we can understand, because sometimes we look at emotional discipline and we're both reading it. You're reading the same book. Yeah. I'm listening to the book on this, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But when it comes to emotional discipline, emotional intelligence, a lot of times, and oftentimes, Gary, a lot of people look at this as a soft skill. And I really want to pivot this from the mindset of this being a soft skill and more so wanting to promote this emotional discipline as a leadership imperative. Like, this is something that we as leaders have to not necessarily master, but like it has to be imperative that we capture this. Why is emotional discipline and this subject matter that we're going to be talking about for the next 50 minutes or so, why is this so important to you, and why is this so important for leaders in a sense?
Yeah, I think, in today's society, when we're in the cancer culture society, when, people are looking for a soundbite, or people are looking for something to kind of write you off, right, or, validate or invalidate you, right? You just have to be so conscious of how you're speaking, the tone of how you're speaking to, who you're speaking to in that tone, and just really know your audience. Yeah. So I think it's extremely important. Where I see the mishaps a lot, and I'm very careful with my audience. And some people will counter that and say you're not being authentic. Or you're being fake if you're not on here, using explicits or anything like that. No, I understand there's a time and place for everything. And I think in order to accomplish my goals, I see fitting that I do so. So I think more people just need to be aware of, their emotional intelligence and how it's perceived in the world. And is it in alignment of what they want to, get accomplished during and is either business or personal.
Yeah. I love that because the world is going in a crazy world. And we're talking about like hybrid work fatigue and where workers are now, the rising complexities. We talk about like the impact of AI, the fear, the stress, the unknown, the replacement, right? There's so much going on. And when we talk about the emotional intelligence with discipline, this is such an important place to really be more proactive. Like it's a mindset when you have emotional discipline. You talked about empathy and all these things, being an authentic leader. And when I think about empathy, it's not necessarily, empathy is not always saying, Gary, you're right. But it's saying, Gary, I understand your perspective.
Yeah.
Right. And so like the emotional discipline aspects of that is so crucial in regards to what is needed. Right. And in regard to the importance of how you establish this as a leader. And that I want to go real quick. And I want you to think about, for those who are watching and you're listening to this, whether you're listening to it live or on demand, on a scale 1 to 10, I want you to think about how emotionally stable do you feel your leader is right now, right? And I think about this, and I think about some of my team members. Like this last quarter for me, Gary, is like emotional for my family. Yesterday, my sister, it was her birthday, who passed away of cancer 9 years ago, and so we always do Dexter, she always came over for her birthday or that week and asked, I say my Amber because Gary and I both had Ambers in our life.
Absolutely.
So but my Amber, like we'll do that. And sometimes she loved to take mom and her mom will have a little girls' day. They go to Buffalo Wild Wings and get some wings, right? And so Dexter always gets to pick like what we're going to do to honor your mom. So he's like, well, we're going to Pacer game because we haven't been to one all year, but one, the first one. And so we went to a Pacer game last night, but beforehand we went to Buffalo Wild Wings and like, just that emotional discipline too. I think about how do I allow my workers during this day that is emotional, stressful. It's a personal, right? And a lot of people and family members, especially for those who have lost a loved one this year, this is their first Thanksgiving without a loved one. This is their first Christmas coming upon without a loved one. I remember my first, like I didn't want to put a Christmas tree up. I come to your house, Gary's got the outside, the inside decorated. He's about to go on the road. You always travel,
absolutely,
and do your thing for the holiday, visiting all your family and friends. And so like your Christmas tree beforehand, but I remember I was like, man, she died on Christmas. She passed away on Christmas. So like, it wasn't the same for me. But Monday through Friday, you still have to show up as a leader, and how you do that and be able to balance that. And I think about, man, how do my coworkers and my team, look at me from an emotional distance standpoint during this quarter? And I look at it quarter by quarter because everything's different. But leading, even in the football sense, like first quarter could be a crap show. Second quarter, we're trying to rebound. Like Ryan Day at Ohio State. And I know that there's a team that you played for.
Rutgers, let's go, baby. Upset of the year. I'm calling it.
Rutgers is going to the shoe for my Buckeyes Saturday. But Ryan Day always says like the last 4 and the first 4 are the most crucial minutes of the football game. The last 4 minutes of the first half, the first 4 minutes of the second half really sets the tone for what the game is going to look like and end on that. And so how you evaluate yourself, and I as I asked everybody, where would you see your leader? How would you grade your leader when it comes to emotionally stable?
Or if you are the leader, how would you grade yourself? And I think that's a key point. And I love what you said about the first 4 minutes and the last 4 minutes, especially as we're heading to the end of the year. And one of the things that we just talked about, and one shout out to you. I don't think everyone knows that. Your sister unfortunately passed away, and I lost a brother, but you took on the awesome responsibility of raising her child like it's your own, and Dexter, right? And the relationship that I see with you and how you travel with your family, man, it's inspiring to me as a dad, to see someone else step in. So shout out to you. But the start fast and then finish strong mentality is what you're talking about. Right. Starting off fast and then finishing strong. So that lasting power, but the entire time being emotional aware of what season you're in, what quarter it is, what adjustment needs to be made. That's what really separates when you look at, the football field, the winners from the losers.
Yep. And so if we just take the definition of John Maxwell leadership, John Maxwell said leadership is influence. And so if leadership is influence, I believe emotional discipline is that force that stabilizes that influence. Right. And so as we gather here, I want to just kind of kick off and let's go. I won't say rapid fire, but I want to go through some of these points and give the audience some of these strategies. For those who are in the HR profession, if you have your SHRM and our HRCI credits, this is SHRM and HRCI approved for 1 credit hour. So we do have that. But let's dive in real quickly, Gary, on the strategic value of emotional discipline. And this particularly, and I got my laptop here because we got a bunch of notes that I want to make sure we cover a lot of things, but connecting emotional discipline to measure business outcomes. What are some ways that you've done this within your business in terms of being able to evaluate and look at your leadership team to be able to measure where they are from an emotional discipline standpoint and look at some of the outcomes from a business outcome, right? Being able to say, man, George is a little bit unstable, and look at those numbers, right?
Yeah.
What's some of the things you looked at?
I think looking back over my career, especially in the customer service industry, I think in high stress times, that's when emotional intelligence is even more critical. And what that leads to is your reviews online.
Yep.
Right. And then how people perceive you online, sometimes good, bad, and different, plays a huge influence on whether people will frequent your organization. So a quick measurement is like, if you're in that customer serving, that customer facing role, like when things don't happen like they're supposed to happen, and that happens a lot, right? Like how does your team react?
Right.
And how your team reacts, you could probably measure from there your retention. You can measure your quality scores, and you can measure all those things are your satisfaction of your customers just based on like your attitude, how you verbalize, how you communicate it, during times of adversity.
Yeah, you think about when there's emotional stability, and you have a leader that has emotional discipline. You're talking about creating predictable environments and outcomes for those teams. Perform better when they know the stability of their leadership, when they know what that looks like, and then also the outcomes of those things. And I don't want to get too far ahead, but I think about having a stable leader, right? And let's play a little sports, because I know we got some people that talks about the football, like having stability, even knowing that, hey, Peyton Manning is our quarterback. We got nothing to worry. Like on defense, if we can just limit the score 10 points or less, we know they're going to win 90% of these games.
Yeah.
But having stability in certain positions is key. Talk a little bit about that, not necessarily just all the way from the football field, but football field and the business that you have from the stack pickle days to the real estate. What is it like, and especially in real estate, be able to have consistent stability within your contractors, right? Knowing that you're going to have the same team show up, they know what you like, they know what you expect.
Or even in the kitchen, right? When people come in and order food, making sure it's the same way, right? It's something familiar to them. But I think as it relates to football teams, a lot of teams take on the personality of their head coaches.
Yeah.
And you see teams that are, hothead, teams that get penalties, teams that are undisciplined, teams that, aren't, and you look at their coaches on the sideline and you can say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But you look at other coaches that are like stoic, that are, consistent, that are disciplined, that do things the right way. And that also is an indication of that leader. So I think, especially sports business, people want to be led.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure, based on your leadership, like that they are consistent with how they're reacting. So I think you see it so often that, that head coach position, that leadership position really, dictates the outcome of their team.
Yeah. It reminds me of, one of my favorite movies, Remember the Titans, and that scene where attitude reflects leadership, Captain.
Yeah.
Like it truly does. And I believe that like what we as leaders embody is what is going to be caught.
Yeah.
Right. More than taught, because it's one of those things I remember growing up, and a lot of people hear parents say, do as I say, not as I do. Right. Don't do what I do. This is bad for you. But we are often, we often catch things more than we do from a lesson of teaching, because it's experience that we want to see. Why are you doing it? Right. What is that feeling? What are you getting from that? And top talent, even today in today's world, top talent more than ever are evaluating leaders, maturity, they're evaluating leaders, presence, they're evaluating the leadership's steadiness within that area. And I think to the last leader, and I want you, for those who are listening, think about the last leader you trusted the most, like that one leader, right? You trusted the most, and what were the calmest voice in the room? Like what was the calmest voice? Because sometimes we have these titles, and people have titles that are not necessarily leaders, right? But then there's always somebody in the room that people gather to, that they say, hey, I'm gonna call in depend on this person in the midst of a storm or trial or something's going on in your life. Think about those type of people and what traits you love about them. When I think about emotional discipline, I think about leaderships that I really, really trust. I think about, man, the last leader I trusted the most, their voice. When things are going crazy, was so calm, right? When everybody else is frantic, they were just at peace, like, we're gonna be all right.
Can I give a Thanksgiving example? Right, we're heading into the Thanksgiving season, right?
Next week, baby.
So back home we play spades.
Okay.
Right, and as a spades player, your objective is to win the most books. So now, if I have an opportunity to play a spade or to cut a spade, and you say you throw out an ace of spade, a king of spade, we play joker, deuce, right? So I could either say, you know what, I can play a spade that's good enough to win. I don't need to like blow up the spot, right? I don't need to like make an impact. I just need to win. But I think in some situations, you have leaders that just wants to like embarrass someone else and throw out the biggest card when they don't have to. And I think in leadership, sometimes you see that, like, we're all in a meeting, someone says something, the leader could diffuse the situation. He could just say something that, makes everyone, but sometimes they're so explosive with their response, right? And it just like everyone else is on edge, and then you make someone feel uncomfortable because you address them in front of anyone. So I think when you're talking about emotional intelligence, it's just knowing what cards to play and kind of when to play them.
Your emotional state is your first strategy. Your emotional state is your first strategy. Leaders who remain steady, calm, really create cultures that remain strong. And that's where, like, when you talk about health, and I'm digging real deep right now, Gary, into this whole psychological safety aspect, right? And where there's trust, like that's the foundation of a lot of things in relationships, obviously, is knowing that I'll be able to trust you, not just with the work, but when work doesn't work right. And but when there's potential of chaos, when there's potential of the what if, that everybody's wondering how this person's going to lead, they're so compassionate, they're always smiling, but what happens when it doesn't work the way we were expecting to do? And to be able to lead with that emotional discipline, you have to understand what drives it. And when I think about what drives, and I want to talk about this, and I'm interested. When I think about what drives emotional discipline, when I think about what drives emotional intelligence, and what we need to understand, the first thing that comes to my mind, Gary, is awareness. The second thing that comes to my mind is regulation. And then the third thing that comes to my mind is intention, right? So number one, awareness, being aware of your people. And I look at this as the importance of anybody who calls himself a leader. It is so important for you to know your people and not just assume all people on your team are going to be okay with just the A option. Right. If you got 10 people on your team, you may have to have 10 different options, because you may have people that seem like they like the same things, but how they respond to certain situations may be different. And so being aware of what drives your team, what motivates your team, what inspires your team, what gives peace to your team members is so important. Talk about the awareness aspect. Like, why is it important to know your people? Because what works for one may not work for another, and what's simple to one may not be simple to all.
I think that's when we talked about this on a prior podcast, the DISC studies and the Myers-Briggs and things like that kind of identifies people's leadership skills, people's personalities, because what might be an incentive or inspiring to one person might be a disincentive to another. So I think really understanding, and I like what you said about offering 10 different solutions. I know when I was in the restaurants, when you could either bonus the employees, or you could give them something during the holidays. And sometimes, people have families and they were cool with the money that they are making. They wanted time off.
Yeah.
Or some people, they had enough time off. They had like this. You had some coach tickets, right? And they wanted to go to a game. So really, I think understanding people and speaking in that frequency of their love language, I think helps you become a better leader, because I think now when you're at work, people feel like, that whole is a family here is cliche, right?
Yeah.
But people, not as a family, but people feel heard and seen, because you're doing something that that is going to jive with what I'm about.
Yeah. If you're watching this live and you got questions, we'll take some Q&A at the end. So drop those in the comments, and we'll love to connect with those. When it comes to the awareness piece, and I want to break these 3 things down. We'll call these the 3 pillars of effective emotional discipline, if we will. On the awareness, knowing your emotional baseline is key. And I think about this, and I want to make an emphasis on like the pattern recognition versus reacting to singular moments, right? Like there's a pattern. How does Gary react to negativity, right? How does Gary react to the positivity? Like what's the emotional baseline of that versus you can see somebody that's very consistent. Right. And think about the employees that have been very consistent and emotional. Like they've been all in. And when I say all in, they're not just checking the box and collecting the check. Like they're all in. They support their teammates. They recognize their teammates. They support when a teammate is failing or struggling. They give in and add some of their strips to the value of the team, or maybe it's a project. Like they're all in. Like they love what they do, but they also love why they are doing it. They understand what they do and understand what they do. And all of a sudden, Terry is not acting in the way a normal Terry would be. Something's going on, obviously. And so being able to have that awareness of what has been consistent patterning versus a singular situation, I think is important to do that. And in doing so, and I want you to ask yourself this question: what emotions do you lead with most often? Right? What emotions do you lead with most often? Now, let's get real personal. And me and Gary love to be vulnerable, and I'm vulnerable here. I typically show 2 emotions, Gary, and I wear my emotions. I don't even wear my emotions on my sleeve. I wear my emotions everywhere.
Yeah.
You look at my
jacket,
ear, like
my
jacket, the pants,
shoes.
my shoes. You can tell like what kind of mood I'm in.
Yeah.
We used to have 18 retail stores in Indiana and Michigan, and my Indiana stores, I visited those obviously because I lived here. I visited those probably 60-70% of the time more than I did our Michigan stores, and my team knew somebody's about to have a heart-to-heart, like this is about to be a come to Jesus moment with George, or somebody's getting let go. And they were able to decipher that, not because I intentionally did it, but I always wore a tie. And it took me back to my pastoral days. I don't know if it took me back to like my grandma, like, if you don't feel good, at least look good. Deion Sanders says it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Look good, feel good, play good, pay good, right? His philosophy. And so I would always wear a tie, and I never realized it, but my employees got onto this about 1.5 years into it. And they knew, like, all right, which one of us is getting heart to heart, who's getting pulled in, or who's getting let go. Like, those are 2 options.
Is the executive look.
Yeah. Like we get real serious. And so they were able to, they were aware of George, the serious focus guy.
Yep.
And so when it came to this, they knew that George had 2 emotions. That there was energy in the room, like we're gonna have some fun. He's smiling, we're gonna have a good time.
Yep.
Or if George was serious, something was bothering him.
Yeah.
Right. George is silent. This is a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
Right. Even in my marriage and relationship, friendships, silent George is probably not a positive situation. He's not. There's 2 types of silence. Like there's something on my mind, or I've been rubbed the wrong way.
It's something that needs to be said.
Yeah. Like, how do I pivot this? And for people who are close to me, I got a 24, 48 hour rule. And if it's bothering me, like, hold on, or you better wait, or you better like knock on the door, check in with George, like, what's going on?
Exactly.
And so I had to understand it, and people around me, my team, was balancing. This is the emotion that he wears the most. Is this a intentional or habitual? Intentional or habitual? And the goal isn't to really necessarily eliminate triggers, like what's triggered to go there, because it's hard to eliminate those triggers. Now I can say I know what words bother Gary, right? I can say I know what work may bother Gary, where he doesn't feel the most confident.
Right.
But when it comes to the emotional side of it, the goal isn't necessarily always to eliminate the triggers, but to be able to identify them. Right? I cannot eliminate triggers out of your life, and I can't protect. And as a father, we try to protect our children for certain triggers, right? But we can't eliminate them. We can identify them. Therefore, your young man beast on the field this year on the football field, right? We know what may trigger certain things, but we can't eliminate that off the field.
Yeah.
But we can identify those. I'm coaching basketball right now, and I always tell the parents, listen, I'm competitive. I want to win, and we will win every night. Every practice we're going to win, every game we will win. And then a scoreboard may not show that we win,
right? Exactly.
But when we get done, we're going to be able to point out some things that we were able to win on the court, right?
I love that.
Whether it's an offensive set, whether it's a defensive set, or whether it was one individual player that did their job. That's a win.
Yeah.
Right. So there's always going to be some wins. Now I always tell the parents, let me know how your kid responds to certain things, because sometimes I don't always yell, but I'm very stern.
Yeah.
Come in real quick, because I don't want everybody to hear what we're talking about when I'm correcting, because I want you to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But does your child respond to those things? So I want to know what triggers that kid, so I can not necessarily eliminate, but I can identify, all right, Sam doesn't do well with one-on-one.
Absolutely.
Look in the eye, serious. He's going to be emotional. He's going to break him down, so he may not be mentally in the game. And so I want to be able to identify those things to make it important in their life. Number 2, we talked about the awareness part, the regulation part, managing yourself under pressure. Gary, has there ever been a time where before there's a crackle and pop that you snapped?
Man, I think that, the awareness, and then like you said, that regulation piece is you knowing your triggers, being aware of them, identifying them, and then either preventing them or being conscious of them on like how they're going to be received, because sometimes it gets to a boiling point where it just like it's scorched earth, right? When I get to this point, I don't care whose feeling's going to hurt. I don't care what comes out of my mouth. And I've learned over time as I matured, right, that's not right.
Yeah.
Because words are damaging and they're hurtful. And I shouldn't say things like always and sometimes if I don't meet them. So I think me being conscious of that, getting to that point, I want to do a better job of staying in that moment and sharing with you how I feel right now, as opposed to saying like, hey, George, I feel like you always, like, hey, always, I just did this today.
Always.
So I think that's one of those things in terms of about regulations, of picking your battles, picking your words, and not trying to like villainize people or tear people down so much when you get to that point and regulating yourself. Yeah.
So when I think about like regulations, some of the things that I always do, especially when I'm coaching somebody, I always want them to be anchored into something, right? Anchor into these practical techniques. And these are a couple of things I always do. Very strategic pause. Whether it's 5 seconds that you talked about, hey, I just got to take a breather and think about it. For me, it's like, man, that bothered me. And I know we always like tomorrow's not promised, but my 24, 48 hour rule it limits me from making an irrational decision based on my emotions. So I always like, if it's a serious situation, let me gather myself, because I got to think about, did Gary mean this as an offense? Did I take it the wrong way? Right? Did I take it out of context? Do I know Gary's heart? Right? And so I always, when it comes to coaching others, strategic pause, 5 or 10 seconds can really change the entire outcome of something. And then I say, be cognitive, like cognitive reframing, to shift assumptions. Like, think about Gary's heart. Think about who Gary is. What's intentional versus habitual, the awareness aspect, right? Do I understand the motive behind what Gary is saying or doing? And then the third thing is leading from principle and not pressure. I want to lead from principle. Like, I am a man of XYZ, leading from my core values,
Right.
right? And instead of the pressure of, I just took offense to this, and my natural reaction and my humanity mindset sometimes says this, but let me check myself, let me check my heart and understand what this could mean. Is so important. And so
I think just to say that right there, I think being triggered, being upset, being unregulated does not absolve you for saying and doing certain things.
Say that again.
Right? Being upset, being triggered,
yeah,
being like over-regulated does not absolve you for doing certain things.
Yeah.
Right? I can't just blow up, act irrational, do things that's not based on the principles of who I am, who you know me to be, and then just say, "Oh, I was upset."
Yeah.
But it doesn't work that way.
Lack of emotional discipline, right? We're talking about like the spur of the moment, like emotional discipline says, listen, everybody that's listening right now, let's take a 3-second pause. And whether it's just breathing in and breathing out, right? One of the things I love box breathing, whether it's to regulate my heart pace, like my anxiety, whatever it is. But like, there's different types of breath works that you can do. But like even that 5 to 10 second, just, all right, let me gather myself, or just breathing, just a 3-second pause, noticing how different you feel and resetting the mindset is so key, right? And so awareness, managing yourself under pressure, and then intentionality, acting in alignment. This is where it's important. And this is where I feel like the Gary that I have gotten to know over the last, 10, 11 months with you is important. Like acting in alignment with your values, right? Like everything that I see Gary, whether it's Gary, the father on the football field, Gary, the significant other in a relationship with your Amber.
Yeah.
There's something about GNA, George and Amber, Gary and Amber.
I
like
know, right?
It's connect. Leaders often operate in urgency. Intentionality really shifts them back into clarity. Why is it important for you, Gary, as you live your life, like you live by your values? Where did that come from? Like, when did it finally hit to you that I have to be the man that I want to be versus one the coach wants you to be, or the team wants you to be, or the company wants you to be, or the company may need you to be? Like, your core values are who you are. You stand by those, and it's everything that you do. It's everything that you say. It's the father that you are, right? When did it hit you that I have to be this man that I desire to be before I can be anybody else?
Yeah, I think one quote that just resonates with me all the time is the speed of the leader determines the rate of the pack.
Yep.
And I love this thing. Someone was interviewing Nick Saban, and they said, so would it be fair assessment to say you are a tough coach? And Nick Saban was like, I don't think that's fair.
Yeah.
Like I live by certain set of standards, and we agree to these standards, and then I coach you to these standards.
Yeah.
So by saying that I'm being tough on you isn't fair because we agree on the front end on what that is.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about intentionality, it's like in relationships, at work, and these different things, they shouldn't be treated like pop quizzes.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be treated like, oh, I got you.
Yeah.
No, they should be treated like, hey, this is something that we're preparing for. This is the opportunity. This is a future test. And these are the answers to it. Right. I want you to be ready when this appears that you can do this. Whether that's working out, whether that's eating properly, whether that's communicating bad news, or whatever that test is, I think by being intentional about that and setting those standards, I think it really helps you for, like you said, being knee-jerk, and being urgent right now. Like it matters.
Yeah.
Like if it matters, it should always matters.
Yep.
And then we should have policies and procedures and documentation that make sure that it matters.
Right.
So I think that's what's very critical when you talk about being urgent and being intentional.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important also to, when we talk about this, is like highlighting values.
Yeah.
I think it's important, especially for organizational leaders. And if you're not doing this, I encourage you to do this. We're so stuck on, and we push our mission, vision as a company and core values that I believe that it's even more valuable for us as leaders to understand the values and the core values of our people, right? And how they then align with your organization. So if you do not as a leader before the end of the year. We're like 40 days or less right now, ready for the 2026 year, which seems crazy to me. But if you don't know your team's core values individually, don't have them on record, on file, whatever it may be, I want to encourage you. I implore you to really go out, have some one-on-ones. You have your end of the year reviews if you've already done them. Go back to them. Don't do this via email, because that's a cheap, non-authentic way.
Yeah.
Like, I really want to know what core values you have. And I understand, George, you understand, we got 100 employees, whatever it may be. Find some time, whether it's in a huddle, have a conversation at least, where they hear your voice and how important this is. And then they can shoot you an email with those core values. Maybe they need to think about them. But I think it's important that you know your individual's core values to be able to then align them with the company's core values. And because highlighting those values and highlighting value-based leadership, it impacts decisions, it impacts the tone, it impacts the communication. And I believe pointing out that drift, when leaders react emotionally, cultures react emotionally. And to be able to understand, like, what kind of culture do we want to have? What's the reaction and the impact and the value that we want to have as an organization? I believe understanding Gary's values, my values, your values as a whole really helps when it comes to the culture that we want to have. One of my main teaching points, Gary, and I want you to kind of chime in on this. I want to say this, and I'm gonna read it so I can say it how I thought it. Awareness creates options. Regulation creates outcomes. Intentionality creates cultures. And I'll say it again. Awareness, we just talked about these three things: awareness, regulation, and intentionality. Awareness creates options. Regulations creates outcomes. Intentionality creates culture. When you hear that, Gary, what does that mean to you? Awareness creates outcomes. Awareness creates options. Regulation creates outcomes. Intentionality creates cultures.
Yeah, when you talk about awareness create options, I think the first thing is self-awareness, and then the next step is like social awareness. So after I understand who I am, what my values are, what I'm triggered by, now understand it socially, how does that play within this group? How does that play within this team?
Yeah.
Because now, based on my awareness, I now have options based on, who I'm on this mission with.
Right.
Now, the second thing, regulation create outcomes.
Yep.
Now I could be properly regulated, knowing like, hey, George is a high outcome guy. I mean, high energy guy.
Yeah.
So now me and George, we can raise the energy and we can crush this project and create the outcomes based on me being aware of what your type is. Right. And then now that becomes, I believe, contagious. And then, like you said, then that intentionality can create that culture.
Yeah.
Now people are seeing, how we're both are aware, how we both are regulated, and then how we both use that with intention to create this positive environment around us where everyone feels like that we can win. I love what you said in so many of the podcasts that we shot earlier, like we always win together. We never win alone. We never, what is it? We always win together.
Win together, never lose alone.
Win together, never lose alone.
Yep.
And that's such a powerful statement of creating a culture, of being attentional. So everyone knows that they have a place, they're seen, and failure is not fatal. And whatever goes on, we're going to get through this.
Yeah. Now, so we talked about this. Awareness, again, creates options. Regulation creates outcomes. Intentionality creates cultures. Now, when we apply these pillars to real situations that leaders encounter daily, right? And so when we talk about leadership, our emotional discipline and leadership in practice, I think about how we move from theory to like concrete, like the foundation, high value application. When we think about some of those things, difficult conversations, for instance. When I think about difficult conversations, Gary, and leading with emotional discipline, the first thing that I always think about is I want to stay factual, right? Not emotional. I just want to stay factual. I want to make sure that this conversation, tough conversation, right? Things that, and when I say tough conversations, it's not always us as leaders having to talk to an employee. It's us as leaders having to, maybe we need to say something to the man or the woman above us. Difficult conversations, the importance of staying factual versus emotional. And we can talk about this at our first episode when I scared you, because we like to have a clean professional show. But I said this show is going to impact for our podcast. It's going to impact all ships. Relationships, business ships, friendships,
ships.
When you're trying to get the ship right, why is it important to not be emotional but stay factual?
Wow. Because
I think that's where self, like when I think about self-defense, you start defending yourself because this ain't factual. You talking about something different. Factual versus
you are not tap dancing on probably my biggest trigger.
Let's go.
of not being factual in a conversation or a ship. Man, because I understand now through awareness that everyone's perspective is a little bit different. And if I drew a 6 on the ground, to me it would be a 6 and to you would be a 9. And we could argue all day long about how we viewed it. I felt like this, or it seemed like you were angry, and all those things. And without the actual facts of what actually happened, I think it's so challenging to then play this game of why so-and-so did this, or what does this really mean? And like all that overthinking comes into play. And most times that monster gets so big that they become unable to be defeated. But when you call the monster for what it is and you start breaking it down, you're like, no, he has some shakes in his arm. Like we can overcome this. We can defeat this. And so I think it's like in those ships, it should always be us versus the problem versus us versus each other. And staying factual helps it remain us versus the problem versus, like, George, I don't know the way you walked in today, like you had cologne on, new sneakers. Like, bro, what does that guy do? Well, us starting the podcast on time. You know what I'm saying? So I think that it's just so critical that you stay factual.
If you treat your relationship or your friendship, your business ship, like a army soldier, eventually you're going to kill it. You'll kill the mission, right? You gotta treat it as a negotiator, because in every ship there's some compromise. Right. And I always say, what you compromise to keep, you'll eventually lose. Right. When you try to hold on to something or someone or something for so long, or your way, because this is what you always done, eventually you're going to lose. And so staying factual and not emotional is the key. The second thing I always think about when it comes to having difficult conversations, focus on clarity over intensity. I want to be very clear versus like the most intense person in the room isn't always the right person, right? And so, like, this is me arguing the same way we talking. Now, it takes a lot for me to raise my voice. And it's usually because you raise your voice, but I want to let you know, hey, I can match you there if you want to go there, but clarity is the key, because like I want to have an outcome here. So I want to stay factual and I want to focus on clarity. Like, what is the outcome that we desire in this conversation?
Man,
right?
That's
because the energy has to be good.
Has to align, like, that regulation with the outcome. And I'm guilty of sometimes going into a situation with an outcome, a resolution that I want to have, and based off someone's non-factual statements, I lose it. Right. So I think I could do a much
because
better
the main
job.
thing doesn't become the main thing. The main thing becomes your non-factual points. And so now we're missing out on the outcomes that we needed to have clarity on versus your intensity and non-factual statements.
And you know what it is? I think it's so critical that you learn people and you actually have conversations with people outside of the work you do. So then you can actually get to know people and how they. I saw reading the book, Abe Lincoln had a quote that says, "I don't like that person. I need to get to know him better." And that's such a powerful thing. I don't.
It's a different perspective.
I don't like them, right? But I need to get to know them better.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes when I see someone's post or something, and then I meet that person, we hang out, we do something, I realize that we are more alike than we are different.
Mm-hmm.
And those differences are probably based on someone's perceptions or someone's upbringing and memories, that form that opinion.
Yeah.
And until I realized that, I'm just like, oh, no wonder you think like that.
Yeah. Yep. So emotional discipline keeps the conversation productive and safe.
Right.
You got to be able to focus on clarity over intensity. You got to be able to focus on factual versus emotional. The second decision scenario that I want to throw out there is the decision velocity under pressure. Decision velocity under pressure. So we're talking about like emotional steadiness prevents reactive decisions, show contrast, right? Impulsive decision versus principled decisions, and the key on that aspect and why it's important as well. To be able to do that. And so we're going to take a quick break real quickly. Oh, we good? We good? I thought Gary was about to do some do a little switch up.
No, I didn't want the battery to die. We're good. We're good. We're good.
We're solid. So we got 10 minutes left in this. Emotional steadiness prevents reactive decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so the importance to be able to show contrast is like impulsive decisions versus principle decisions. I always go back to like, I want you to be a man and woman of principles, not a man or woman of pleasing, right? Don't be a people pleaser. We're both recovering pleasers from our childhood. And so we tend to in tight situations, confrontation, where emotional discipline can really, go a different way. People pleasers tend to just say yes, whatever is needed, and they want to keep a calm area. Somebody that's really having emotional intelligence and discipline will say, listen, impulsive decision versus principled decision. I want this to be on principle. Like as the man that you are, as the woman that you are, I want you to hold true to who you are, your values, and we're going to focus on clarity. We're going to focus on, factual situations. Third scenario. Do you have anything to say there?
One huge thing I've learned to do now, because of most conversation, if someone's coming that's urgent, they want to get something off their chest, and they're going to say something real fast, and they just assume you're going to agree with them. And if you don't say anything in that moment, then your silence was complicity, right?
Yeah.
So I've learned if someone says something to make a little or a little just something that indicates that my wheels are turning.
Yeah.
And I might not be in agreement with what was just said.
Yeah.
And that allows them to say, like, why? Is anything wrong?
Yeah.
And then for me to open up, well, actually, and then that can help me pause and then figure out a way like how I can not combat what they're saying, but just offer a difference of opinion.
Right.
Because I think so many times people don't say anything, and then that silence becomes acceptance.
Yeah.
So I think when you're talking about these things and regulating and having these conversations and clarity, I think if it's unclear, then you need to say, clarifying question. I just want to make sure that this is exactly what we're referring to.
Yep. And whenever I'm in a situation, like I was always taught, like repeat the statement you believe you heard. So did I understand you to say?
Yeah.
And then I'll repeat X, Y, Z. Right. So there's clarity there. What that does when you create that clarity, then, and I think it creates like scenario number 3, culture influence. And so leaders' emotional inconsistency creates fear and confusion. I believe emotional discipline leaders fuel psychological safety. And one of those areas that, that I think of is like leading through change. Resistance is normal for a lot of people, but emotional discipline is what calms that system. I always say change is what the leader embodies. If the leader says, oh my gosh, I can't, here we go, we're going to be changing it. Or if the leader says, man, this is incredible, this is the vision and why we're going to change it. Like what you embody is the energy and the culture that you create within your team. And so your steadiness becomes the team's signal of stability, right? Your steadiness becomes the team's signal of stability. And so strategic outcomes that I want to encourage you to reinforce is have great credibility, like be consistent in who you are. Higher trust and alignment is key. Having trust of your team that you're going to show up, that you're going to be there, that you will create a plan.
Yeah.
And when it comes to creating a plan, it's not always your way, and there's no highway option. It's our way, right? Yeah. We talked about, Gary said earlier, we win together, we never lose alone. And so creating that trust and alignment. And then how can I reduce drama and miscommunication? right? Reinforce those as a leader, thinking about some of those things that you can do, and to be more resilient, and create that resilient culture that you desire, especially as you go into 2026 and beyond. How can we do these things? And I'll say this as a teaching principle: people follow clarity and consistency, not intensity. As an individual,
say that again.
People will follow clarity and consistency, not intensity, right? The loudest person in the room is not always going to get the voice, right? The loudest roar in the jungle doesn't always win. It's that one who's going to protect, who's going to lead, who's going to be able to reflect. And so, understanding what you need to do on these 4 scenarios that we gave, like which one of these 4 areas is the biggest opportunity for you right now? Like, do you need to have some reflection on one of these and think about, how do I create this culture? How do I evaluate these scenarios? Gary, I want to wrap up the last 6-7 minutes and talk about emotional discipline as a leadership capability. And specifically, being able to provide some actionable strategies that leaders can really take back to their teams. Starting with number 1, creating a personal emotional operating system. We talk about like the EOS and iOS and different things, but when I think about creating what we call the EOS, the emotional operating system, it starts for me with defining values, behaviors, and decision rules. Like when we make a decision, what's the rule on how we're going to make this decision as a family? What's the rule for your ship and your business? What's the rule for your ship on your team? But number 1, create a personal emotional operating system. I believe it begins with the values, behaviors, and decision rules. This becomes like your internal leadership manual, if you will. Thoughts on that?
I love that. And Ray Dalio's book, Principles, he talks about having principles so then you don't have to use that brain fatigue every time a situation comes up. It's like, does this align with my principles? And then your then answer should be simply, is this alignment or misalignment? And if it misaligns, I don't need to ask any more questions, right? It doesn't align with who I am. So I think it's so critical to have that as your baseline.
Number 2, leadership buffers. I think this is key. Our good friend Ryan McCarty, about a year or so, we created this RSVP: roles, strengths, values, purpose, and helping organizations implement this into their instead of annual reviews. What if we had quarterly check-ins? With the belief that if you don't check in with your team, eventually your team will check out, right? And so creating leadership buffers is for me is important. This is time blocks. This is having decompression periods. This is like decision windows. Like for me, when I'm at home or if I go to a coffee shop, I work. I used to do like a 25-minute, take 5, or I just stand up. Now I'm like 45, 50 minutes, and at the top of the hour, I'll walk away from my desk. Whether I go in the hallway and I just pop 10, 15 push-ups real quick, or I may go downstairs and go outside and just enjoy some air, some peace. I may sit down and chit chat if our granddaughter's over, play with her for a little bit, or Dexter's home, whatever it may be, just to kind of decompress a little bit. But for me, the importance of leadership, buffers, what I call a leadership buffer for me is like this prevents emotional spillover into other decisions, right? You come from one meeting, and we see this a lot. You're in one meeting, and then you got a back-to-back meeting, and your feelings on this meeting wasn't so good, but you got another meeting, and you're leading this meeting. It's a positive meeting, but you got what's on your mind from the other. Like having those buffers are so important for me. And I don't know about you, but how do you build in some of those buffers when you're going from one industry to another industry, to the family, to coaching football, to like balancing? Like what's the importance of those buffers within your life?
Man, on the football field, we would always say good play, bad play. Let's get focused on the next play. And so often you see people late in the day, like, I'm having a bad day. Like, why? Like, well, I woke up and this happened. I'm like, that you had a bad morning. That was fun. Like you carry that over to your entire day.
You may have a bad moment, but not a bad day.
Exactly. So for me, I really try to compartmentalize, those meetings throughout my day. And then also through awareness, understand like, all right, especially now companies are dealing with government regulations.
Yep.
And, it seems like every day a new rule or something's coming out that's preventing you to do something that opens doors for other things. And if you're a leader in an organization, what's not get communicated gets filled in.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't communicate, hey, I think this means X, Y, Z, but we're going to keep you all posted. Then you have the rumor mill start, right? And you don't address it. So I think it's just important that you just stay out in front of as many things as possible, and you're the voice of common reason if you're a leader.
Yeah, I think about the third thing that I think is important, and it goes with what you're saying as far as, especially when it comes to checking in and not leading your team to assume anything, is like, whether you call them team. I think about your story that you share with Nick Saban, like team standards. This is the standard of the team. Some people have standards, some people use the word rituals or habits, whatever it may be. But like the team standards for me and my leadership, anybody that's on my team as a leader, I want there to be emotional clarity check-ins. Like let's check in, not just to check in, just check in, but let's check in and all. Like, how are you doing? But no, like, Gary, how are you truly doing? I want to know. Yeah. Versus the hey, how are you doing? And we keep on walking, check in, right? Yeah. It's like, do you really care? Yeah. And then you get the lie of good, I'm good, right? When deep down inside you're going through hell.
It's funny. Sometimes I just check people. How you doing? I'm awful. Okay, good. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
People don't wait to
just
listen
to see you
to the response.
Awful. Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah. No, I'm awful. Are you still going? Yeah. So it's important. So having that emotional clarity check-ins is important. Pause moments before major discussions, right? Being able to do that, promote stability as a cultural norm is important. The number 4 thing I want to, from a strategic standpoint, this is the one that's hard for a lot of leaders, because it goes back to what Mama always said: practice. It's not the practice what you preach. It's like do as I say, not as I do. The accountability practice, right? I think accountability, holding leadership accountable, should be a thing. Like employees should hold us accountable to the core values of our company. If I'm not living out a core value, they should be able to say, hey, George, I don't feel like you show that you care. Or, hey, George, I don't feel like you as a leader, like you're delegating everything, but yet we as a team are supposed to drive the business. Yeah. Right. It's not what you say, but it is how you say it. And so being able to have those accountability moments is key. And some of the things that I thought was important when I did this with our team is creating essentially what you could call peer partners. Like, hey, sometimes Joe doesn't do well with one-on-one, but he does well if there's 2. Well, Sarah may not do well with 2 because she feel like y'all ganging up against her. And so being able to have peer partners, to be able to have discussions like, how do we deal with this? Hey, hold me accountable. I'm struggling. Please hold me accountable if you see that I'm checking out, or I'm mentally not there, or emotionally not, disciplined, or I'm acting out of character. I got some personal things going on. Having those peer partners that you can trust and be able to go to, accountability partners, however you want to use the word, whether it's journaling, that's another option you can use. And then after action, emotional reviews. I learned this one very recently. This year, it was like, have you ever done like a personal review where like after you've gone through something, after you've been confronted on something, have any after action emotional review? How did I deal with that? Did I deal with it poorly? Right. Did I overreact? Did I underreact? I never thought about underreacting. Like that should have been like, you're right. Thank you so much. And it was more like, which gives off a right, or I don't really care. Right. But deep down inside, I'm like, I appreciate that person. One, having the trust to be able to confront me and hold me accountable. But my body said, F you. All right, get away from me. Like, who cares? So like for me, that leadership principle was so valuable. Like, systems outperform self-control. What is a system here? Being able to create these strategies. Because when I think about the system, like systems are meant to create, things from breaking down, right? And having having willpower doesn't.
Consistency, predictability.
Yep. And so as we close and we bring this all together, Gary, emotional discipline, having that creates better decisions. It creates better culture. It creates better outcomes. It creates alignment, right? It creates all these positive things. Now we can talk about what the lack of emotional discipline does, but you can just go ahead and just say the opposite, right? It creates horrible culture. It creates a lack of a good decision.
Unpredictable outcomes. Right?
Unpredictable outcomes where nobody knows. And so then you create, employees that are just checking the boxes. one final question, a reflective question I want to give you is, what would actually change in your organization if emotional discipline became a leadership norm? Right? Think about that for those who are watching it. If emotional discipline became a leadership norm, what would change in your organization? From you, Gary, when you understood like the emotional discipline aspects, whether it's from a football experience or a business experience, what was one of the biggest changes that stood out to you the most when you were like, this is what it means to have emotional discipline. This is the outcome. Like, what was that moment where, and we talk about, the coach Dungy and his demeanor and his leadership, very calm and peaceful. Like, I still want to hear him yell. I don't know if he can get fired up. I don't know the experiences.
I've heard it.
They get fired up. But that emotional discipline, what was like a highlight for you where you was like, man, I'm so glad I had this emotional stability and discipline? I
would think about it. So 2006, 2007, we won the Super Bowl. 2006, we played against Jacksonville Jaguars, and it was probably one of our worst games of my career. We gave up like 400 yards of rushing, like 399, something like that. Bob Kravitz had a funny line. He said they did rush for 600 yards, but the end zone kept getting in the way. Right? So this is a year where we just lost to Pittsburgh. We were supposed to win the Super Bowl, and emotions were high, and we've got our butt whooped in December. It's like when you should be playing your best football. And this is a moment where everyone's in the meeting room, and this is where Coach Dungy could have came in screaming, yelling, kind of kept the emotions high, and his thing would always, he would come in and he would talk about things we did right, like there's always a win.
Yep.
And then he would talk about addition by subtraction.
Yeah.
Then he would talk about removing some things that causes hesitation, that causes us not to be online.
Yeah.
Calling those out so everyone's on the same page with that. So then pointing out like, hey, I know anytime you see a blowout in a game and then you hear a coach say, oh man, we could have won. Like, you lost by 40.
Yeah.
But when you watch film, you're like, oh man,
the film is adjustments.
We had 2 or 3 turnovers. Right, we had 2 blown coverages, and this guy slipped on. So things are easily correctable, but they need to be worked on.
Yeah.
So I think that was always refreshing to me, that we would always level set and talk about facts.
Yeah,
this is what actually occurred.
Yeah,
and when you do that, because sometimes when you don't present facts, you think the sky is falling.
Right.
And then you start making assumptions. Oh, he doesn't have it anymore. Or this guy's not that fast anymore, right? But none of those things are true. So I think keeping it factual and then offering solutions, right, really helped us feel secure in next steps.
Yeah,
because someone had answers.
Yeah, it's good.
This problem was solvable.
Yeah, that's good. I want to end with this, and we'll wrap up. I do want to share a couple of things, but I want to end with this. I want people to understand the emotional discipline. When we're talking about emotional discipline, even if you use the emotional intelligence, I don't want you to look at it as a skill. I do not believe emotional discipline is a skill. I believe it's a leadership that you become. I believe it's a leader that you become. And so emotional discipline is not a skill. It's a leader that you become. How do I become a leader of emotional discipline? I think some of the strategies we shared today, if you align those, if you adapt to those, if you learn those things and create habits and practices within how you deal with things within your organization, it becomes a thing for you to be able to live on and strive to. At the top right corner of your screen right now, you get a QR code. Make sure you scan the QR code. You can connect with us, Gary. Every week, every Wednesday, we're dropping podcasts.
That's right.
Every week. The one that just dropped yesterday is self-evaluation.
Yeah.
So a timely time right now as we go live today. Go back and listen to it. It's on all platforms. You can scan here. You can find out what platform you want to, whether it's YouTube. It's always on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere you can find your podcast of your choice. Scan the QR code right there. Connect with us in that way. If you want to connect to Gary, boom, brand new QR code.
Hey,
connect with Gary on LinkedIn as well. You can connect with us on LinkedIn. We'd love to connect with y'all. We are very passionate about this thing that we call life and leading people. And it's not just something that we act out when it comes to championing your mindset and championing your purpose. This is something that we truly believe changes organizations. Mm-hmm. Gary, just real quickly, not to have a little infomercial, but just real quickly, the importance of championing your mindset and what that does to organizations when it comes to workshops. We do keynotes. We also do leadership development. And that's something we are wanting to do more of in 2026. You get the price of 2 for 1. And so you can connect with us. We can talk a little bit about that as something you're going in your organization, but championing your mindset, that's something that it comes from your heart.
Yeah, no question. I just think in organizations, your leadership team can't be a 4-5-6 and demand a 7-8-6, from their people.
Yeah.
So I think leadership begins at the top. I think it's not like motivation where you get motivated, you can do something. It's like discipline. It has to be instilled into yourself, into your people, and that's when you can start seeing real, like, definable results.
Yep. And so, Gary Brackett, George Rogers, you can connect with me as well. This QR code is for mine. Love to connect with everybody on LinkedIn. Once again, Gary Brackett, George Rogers, you can find those on LinkedIn for more information, or you can check out championblueprintpodcast.com. And for more information, connect with us as well. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, every Wednesday when you wake up, make sure you subscribe, share that out. If we don't hear from you again, make sure you have a great Thanksgiving, Gary.
Hey, what is it? Champion your
mindset, champion your purpose. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.